free running form clinics once a month, where we're going to meet here, we'll run down to the park, and we're actually going to do an actual...
I've been going with you. Oh, later, I'll catch you later, John.
Everybody. Okay. So,
all right, guys, everybody.
I'm going to take this off. Everyone's got pizza and everyone's had some beer. There's also Perrier for those who choose not to partake. Thank you and imbibe. Cheers. Cheers. Here's the running. Here's the running fast. Here's the running injury-free. Here's the running at Runnergy. All right, so welcome.
All right, everybody.
Welcome, friends, runners, my friends from Toastmasters. We have a group, and we actually practice public speaking, so they're here to make sure that I do this just right. And if they don't, then they beat me up on Sunday. They beat me up anyway.
Tonight, while you're weak after running, we don't want to wait Sunday when you're strong.
Exactly. Exactly. So here's the thing. I put this book together for people such as myself, and it's based on a lifetime of trying to figure things out and actually being reasonably successful at it. I didn't start off with any particular physical gifts, and anything that I accomplished, which is nothing great. I mean, here are two guys who will kick my ass running, but I run as well as they do because I figured out the form. There are guys in the gym who are a lot stronger than I am, but even a Mr. Olympia, who is a friend of mine, his technique wasn't any better than mine. Mine, in many cases, was better than his because I really worked on that. He also had a whole refrigerator full of pharmaceuticals that allowed him to climb the ladder faster than, say, some others. And insofar as diet, this, by the way, is Gary Davis. Gary is one of my oldest friends in LA. He's one of my best friends, one of my best friends.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So, insofar as diet, there are a ton of different diets out there, and I've tried a number of them, and I've found some things that work. It's not necessarily easy. No diet's necessarily easy, but mine's not exactly a diet. It's just a way of eating. The point is, I have some stuff in here that's worked for me for a long, long time. It's proven. It's something that you can use, and I say that you can use it because I'm you. Some people are faster than I am. Some are slower than I am, but we're all pretty much the same. We all have the same bones. We have the same circulatory system, lungs, digestive system. It works the same way. And I give you some pretty clear, pretty simple ways of approaching it. There's a philosophy in this. So this will work for you as it worked for me and as it's worked for my clients, should you choose to buy it and use it. Now, since this is a running store, one of the things that I figured would make sense is to talk about something that's common to a lot of runners, and that's injury. Injuries happen. We want to avoid injury. And one of the problems with running is the big, bulky shoes. Now, I understand that I am in a running store. But Jeff, the owner of the running store, is back there saying, he's throwing me a chair. Because it's been observed, tested, and understood empirically by people that when you take your shoes off, A, your feet feel better, B, they're lighter, you can actually run faster, and you tend to run more naturally. The shoes create the problem. And on that note, I'd like to read, okay, it's not much. See the highlighted area? It won't take long, trust me, and I'll try and read quickly. But this is something, it's in the chapter called Runnin' Naked, okay, which means barefoot running. And I talk about how there's a particular school of thought with shoe wearing, and I also have some examples of barefoot running and how it's useful and how it's actually the norm. But I talk about running injury because it's really an underappreciated fact that shoes are probably the biggest problem we have in running. So,
Sorry, Chris?
is it for me?
No, Steve Martin, sorry.
By the way, Gary is responsible for this,
Oh, come on.
and
Oh, okay.
he's the man. When it comes to graphics, he's the man. So this is called What About Injury from the Run and Naked chapter. Over the last 40 or 50 years, as recreational running has enjoyed immense popularity in America, foot and leg ailments have become increasingly prevalent. Despite the claimed advances in running shoe technology, rehabilitation techniques, and training methods, there is still no real consensus on the actual cause of these injuries, and thus there has been no real remedy offered in the mainstream. There is, however, the business model that favors treating the symptom as opposed to finding a cure, because with the cure, the revenue stream stops. But no such tacit collusion could exist in the running shoe medical complex, could it? Anyway, what is certain though is about half of all runners will be injured by their sport this year. Next year, the year after, and it will continue like that indefinitely. This necessarily indicates that the running shoe and any other external fix is proven to be, based on evidence, an overall abject failure. Instead of solving problems, our trusted shoes may actually be the cause. The running shoe has been shown to materially alter sensory perception, making it more difficult to respond in correct context to variations in surface firmness. Moreover, cushioning makes it near impossible to sense the additional impact transient of a heel strike. The heel strike tends to accompany shod running, wearing shoes, but it's normally absent in barefoot running. You don't feel it, but the shock is still there. Compounding this, because shoes insulate and support the foot, they weaken it in the same way that helping a chick peck its way out of a shell deprives it of its initial natural strengthening. I know, some might bristle at such a conclusion, in large part because it's unlikely many of us know a world without shoes. Most of us were forced into shoes before we were walking, so such knee-jerk defensiveness of convention can be expected. The tenacious grip of belief can be hard to shake, even in the face of irrefutable fact. I might point out that through all the research that has sought the cause of running injury, running technique has taken a back seat. That's because running, unlike other sports, is considered a natural activity. Humans already know how to run, is the assumption. And that's true up to a point. As a species, we're more similar than we are different. We're hardwired for endurance running. As children, before we know anything, most of us experience our three-dimensional world viscerally. From this most primal level, we begin running with a technique as fluid and as efficient as any wild beast. Prescriptions of society, restrictive shoes, and fearful or irritated early parental admonitions like, "Stop! Don't run into the street," negatively affect gait and create a cognitive dissonance that can be recognized in the body language of most runners. A heel strike, common to about 3/4 of the running population, is a startling example of the conscious mind saying go and the subconscious mind saying no, right? Every step slams on the brakes. You've seen this position, right? Right, where the upper body's leaning forward, and that. Here, try this with me, for those of you who are able to jump. Do this, 1, 2, 3, do that. Land on your heel. One more time. Right? You feel a difference, yeah? You did feel a difference. Actually, here's a quick aside. I actually gave a talk at REI, and I had everyone imagine you're jumping on you were there, jumping on the balls of your feet, jumping on the balls of your feet. Okay, now land on your heels. Everyone was sitting down, and I heard, "Oh!" You remember that? Anyway, so every step slams on the brakes. This running style is a gestalt that reveals just how far we veered from our natural alignment with those physical forces that originally modeled our form to suit our function. Understand that running speed is irrelevant in this equation, and that endemic injury is the smoking gun. That leads right to running technique, because it's only through egregious misuse that we could so consistently be injuring the most resilient structures of our bodies, our feet and our legs. I address this in lectures and more running-specific writings, but here's another aside. Tell me if you agree with this. There can hardly be greater insult to the body than smoking cigarettes, right? Especially to the lungs, yeah? We have agreement on that? Okay. Anyone who can recall their first smoke probably remembers a physical effect, quite a bit of coughing, burning, watery eyes, and probably dizziness and nausea too. Hello. That smoking provokes physiological responses akin to poisoning or allergic reactions would clearly seem to demonstrate that inhaling cigarette smoke, which contains carbon monoxide, among other toxins, presents a clear and present danger to the physical health of the human organism. Yet, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center determined that the likelihood of getting lung cancer from smoking, which is said to kill about 130,000 people a year, can be accurately predicted by age, sex, and smoking history. For instance, a 68-year-old man who smoked 2 packs a day for the past 50 years and continues smoking has, well, let me ask you this. What do you think his chances are of getting lung cancer, say, in the next 10 years?
0.
33%.
Depends on where he lives.
90%, 60%, 45%, or 15%?
15.
50? That wasn't any multiple choice. It's 45. Commit to 45? Okay. Anyone else? 15%, right? Seems kind of crazy. Compare that, and 15% is at the high end. Compare that with the certainty that every year about half of all runners will be injured by their sport. And that's running, which is as natural to human beings as breathing fresh air. The issue here is not the severity of the ailments, say lung cancer versus shin splints, but their respective prevalence. How could the odds possibly favor smoking 40 cigarettes a day? That's 2 cigarettes per waking hour, every day, all day, for half a century. I'm 50 years old. That's like me smoking from the time I was born until now, right? Let me say this again. Only through egregious misuse could we be able to so consistently injure the most resilient structures of our body. Because the running shoe materially alters running gait, natural gait, and simultaneously robs us of the feedback necessary to correct and adjust our faulty stride, this protective supportive device creates and becomes itself a threatening environment. Sadly, with cushioned shoes, we don't even get the initial red flag that a drag on a cigarette provides. But I don't really expect that you will throw away your shoes for good and now run only barefooted. Indeed, because of additional traction, protection from ground surface heat, the occasional bottle cap or piece of broken glass, or the unknowns of nighttime running, a light, flat pair of shoes, right? A light, flat pair of shoes is probably a good idea. So is looking where you're going. But nonetheless, the compelling reason for you to include unshod sessions in your training is that barefoot supports and generally strengthens your feet, and therefore your fitness overall. The whole book is about how you can support your structure. You can even support your structure by running in shoes, but by learning how to run barefooted and actually using that as a training tool. So I outlined what the running form should be like. I don't think, even my mentor, Nicholas Romanoff, I don't think he outlined and detailed running in the same way that I did in this. And it's pretty clear what actually happens. So we're going to get back to the pizza in a moment. I want to point out that Jeff, by the way, Jeff Robbins, owner of Runnergy, is a pioneer here in Los Angeles, which is a big compliment to him, with the natural running shoes. Because they are flat, they are light, they don't, hey Red. Anyway, Jeff has the best selection of the minimalist shoes, the barefoot shoes, and they're not barefoot. I mean, you run barefoot, you're barefoot, but it's a close second, especially the Vibrams, which I'm wearing, and I highly recommend these. this is the place to be for that. And if you try them and adjust to them, you'll actually learn quite a bit about what it feels like when you're running correctly. The thing that I teach, which I mentioned, and I'm going to raffle off the pose method session, is how to develop the mechanics of running in concert with those in my body instead of some cushioning in my shoes. Imagine if I did this on my heels, right? So that's the thing to get out of it. You've got a beautiful biomechanical spring in your body. I tell you about why shoes are